Hello, welcome to my channel where I review, talk, or just create things as a whole. Today I'm reviewing My Adventures with Superman, which is the new DC animated series that follows a different take on Superman. Not that different, but a somewhat different approach to Clark Kent / Superman.
I can do this. I'm gonna hide my powers and be a normal man having a normal day. Hang on! Starting now.
While we look into Clark Kent, who is building his secret superhero identity while also being an intern for the Daily Planet, alongside Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. They all have specific adventures being interns alongside Clark Kent, who is trying to find out where he came from. I did a reaction video to the trailer of this a while ago, which certified my anticipation for this show. With that said, this show is interesting in a few specific ways, one in which being the animation, which has an anime-esque look to it. The other way being the execution of the characters. It is definitely a character-based show, and I think it succeeds in fleshing out Clark, Lois, and Jimmy with their own character arcs throughout the season. I also think the show has a good job developing the chemistry in between Clark Kent and Lois Lane.
Is this how you see the world? It's beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Which is definitely romantic, by the way. Lois is so smart and charming, with an interesting personality, while Clark is smart, charming, and has a super personality. This mofo is built like a fridge, too. Like, look at this guy. Look at how Lois holds his thumb while she's walking. They're way too cute. Also, another important thing to note is that this show is, in fact, a Superman show. I say this because in the past decade, Superman has been kind of on the sidelines in terms of comic book characters having their own films. This is partially because of Warner Brothers and DC not knowing what they're doing with their own franchise, the DCEU, and basically just leaving Henry Cavill by himself. So I think it's a pretty big deal to have a Superman-related project as of now. How does Ant-Man have a whole trilogy before Henry Cavill?
Darren?
Surprised to see me?
And there's no place you can run, Scott. Not from me, and not from him.
Oh my lord. I mean, I didn't think Man of Steel was the greatest, but there was something to build off of from that film. But whatever. How is My Adventures with Superman? Well, to answer that question, I am happy to proclaim My Adventures with Superman to be a worthy Superman show. The thing that makes the Superman show interesting is the focus on these three characters, in which this trio is really just starting out on the Daily Planet. Lois Lane, I think, has an interesting portrayal here because she is smart, determined, and willing to get the tea on certain events, but in the role of an intern. There is even a comparison that is shown in one episode that I honestly thought was genius, and it further proves my statement. Jimmy Olsen has an interesting role, especially with the fact that he has his own channel in which he creates content for. Wait, why is the camera painting at me? In Jimmy's channel, he talks about sightings of aliens or superpowered beings that are out in the world. Lois and Jimmy, being interested about Superman and who he is, creates a threat to Clark, who is figuring out who he even is. But with that said, when trouble arises, Clark will go out of his way to save the day.
Normal day, starting now.
In terms of the portrayal with Superman, I think this show definitely nails it. Clark going out of his way to save a cat out of a tree or just a child in peril. That is my Superman, alright? This show knows who Superman is and also who Clark is within his connections with other characters. I think it is really cool in the way it's portrayed. Now, alongside of this whole concept, most of the villains of this show aren't even major villains in DC as a whole, but I think that's just the show starting off small, and that's completely fine. Being vague with no spoilers, I like the appearance of certain villains and how they connected to the story, and even to some of the main characters. I thought they were pretty well implemented, and it also led to an epic showdown / finale. In terms of flaws, I think the show is just a tad fast-paced in its character development, as it goes a little too fast past certain arcs. But I do appreciate a show that only takes about one season to get through, quote-unquote, bases. While some other shows take about 3 seasons to get to that. There are certain characters and villains that could have been fleshed out a tad better, but other than that, I would say though there are certain characters and villains that could have been fleshed out a tad better. Alongside that, I found one episode to be actually pretty interesting. I'm not going to spoil anything, but episode 7 took an entirely different direction for one episode that I thought was hilariously jarring, but honestly surprisingly very interesting. The episode actually did move the story forward and connected to a certain plot point, but I still found episode 7 really funny in its direction. If you've seen the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In conclusion, I think My Adventures with Superman takes a simple approach to Clark Kent/Superman. A simple yet different approach. You'll know what I mean when you see it. But it is a very good Superman show that boasts great characters and complex arcs that connect in a pretty satisfying way. This was yet another show that was going to premiere on Cartoon Network, but it got moved to Adult Swim. This generation's new Superman animated series is behind an Adult Swim paywall. On Adult Swim. I mean, I get that Unicorn Wars Eternal had some mature themes, but My Adventures with Superman is kind of not, it's not that mature, but I mean, it's PG-13. I don't know how to explain it. On Adult Swim. But that's not the point. At 7 years old, I witnessed this moment in regular show.
This is all your fault! I finally get a chance to ask out Margaret, but you had to butt in and ruin everything!
No, I didn't! I just wanted to see Zombie Dinner Party with my bro, who flaked on me for some girl who doesn't even know he exists!
I'll kill you!
7-year-old me witnessed that, and I thought it was pretty scary, but also pretty cool. Now, little Timmy, let me hold your hand upon the dark and grown-up complexities of My Adventures with Superman. Okay, minor rant aside, I'm glad we have a great and consistent Superman project in DC right now. If this show continues its streak, then Superman in DC, sorta, have a bright future ahead. I give the first season of My Adventures with Superman a 9 out of 10. I definitely recommend it to comic book and DC fans. If you liked what you see here, please like and subscribe. And stay tuned for more videos coming soon.